family. I felt really bad about last Sunday when my sermon didn't get completely finished, so I decided to go ahead and just read you my sermon again because I feel the message I missed is kind of important for today's world. So here we go. We are continuing to look at the life of Moses. To be honest, there's so much we could say about the man that we could spend an entire year studying his life and only scratch the surface. But today, just as the title of my message suggests, which is Set Your Mind on God, I want us to focus on one particular lesson of Moses from Moses' life. Despite everything that has happened to him, Moses learned to keep his mind focused on God. Our lives are often shaped not so much by circumstances that we face, but where we choose to set our minds. Moses encountered one impossible situation after another throughout his entire life. And yet in every one of these moments, God was present. Time after time, God invited Moses to shift his focus away from the fear and move toward faith. We first see this after Moses tries to intervene in a fight between two Hebrew men. Instead of appreciating his help, these two men reminded him of something he hoped no one would ever know, that he had killed an Egyptian. Suddenly, Moses realized his secret is no longer safe. Fear takes over. Panic takes over him. He runs. He flees into the wilderness where he spends the next 40 years as a shepherd. If we were writing this story, we might think Moses ruined God's plan. We might assume God had set him aside, or perhaps even forgotten about him altogether. During these 40 years, however, Moses probably replayed that day in his mind for more times than he can count. Have you ever done that? Replay a conversation, a mistake, a decision you wish you could just take back? I imagine Moses did the same thing. But God hadn't forgot about him. When God appears in the burning bush, he doesn't begin to remind Moses of his failure. Instead, he says, I have indeed seen the misery of my people. So now go, I am sending you. In other words, God is saying, Moses, your past is not the end of your story. I still have work for you to do, and I will be with you every step of the way. We get a front seat view of this as Moses indeed goes back to Egypt. He takes his plea to the Pharaoh. Of course, we all know Moses basically laughed at. And yet Moses is staying focused. He knows that God is with him during all of this. Oddly enough, leaving Egypt was the easy part. Leading God's people was the real challenge. Can you imagine trying to lead 1 million of unhappy people? There would have been complaints about every little thing. No water, not enough food. The people are rebelling against God. We can't really forget about that golden calf. The punishment of wandering the wilderness. If Moses had kept his mind on the people's complaints instead of God's presence, I imagine he would just want to throw up his hand and say, that's it, I'm out. Good luck. But since Moses is focused on God, he continues to turn to him. Moses prays, intercedes, he listens. And most importantly, he keeps reminding himself that God is with him. He didn't have to react to every single complaint that was laid upon his feet. Now, this is kind of an important lesson for us this week, today, Sunday. If you are constantly focused on the criticism, the discouragement, evil does win. However, if you return your thoughts to God, peace settles upon you. Think about that for a moment. You're at work. It's a normal day. You mistakenly break a piece of equipment. Your supervisor is making noise about the cost, the delay in product. You might lose your job. There's rumors of that going around. At the end of the day, you're ready to go home. And that vehicle you drive decides, this is the day of my radiator, I'm not working. More stress is added upon your shoulder. So when you finally get home, supper's not ready because you forgot to take something out of the freezer. You go to sit on the couch, the pressure is just building. It is too much. Now in the past, I would have broken down in tears. wondering, what did I do to deserve this? Now that I'm a little older and wiser, maybe, while I'm sitting on that couch after a stressful day, I close my eyes and simply quietly say to myself, God, I hand this over all to you. I know that you will get me through this because you are with me. Once I've done this, there's a peace that settles over me. Now, I like to think that this is what Moses is doing when he is leading the people of Israel for 40 years. This has to be the reason for him praying, talking to God all the time. We know that Moses doesn't get to the so-called promised land. Nowadays, it might seem like a tragedy. But Moses isn't being a servant for God for a reward. Moses serves because God is worthy. We need to remember that faithfulness means we are planted seeds that we will never see come to fruit. Our parents know this. Our teachers know this. Pastor knows this. Our ancestors definitely knew this. We are never going to see everything that God is doing. We are never going to see everything that God is doing through our faithfulness. Moses certainly didn't. And yet God called him faithful. I hope that today's message helps you know that setting your mind is not a one-time decision. This is something you must do every single day. When fear comes, set your mind on God's promise. When guilt comes, set your mind on God's forgiveness. When discouragement comes, set your mind on God's faithfulness. When your future seems a bit uncertain, set your mind on the Lord, who already knows the way. The 40 years in the wilderness does not define Moses. His circumstances does not define him. His failure certainly didn't define him. The direction of his mind did. Sorry, I get emotional with these all the time. So I'll leave you with a question or two. What has been on your mind this week? Has it been fixed on fear, worry, regret? Everything that seems to go wrong is. Or has it been fixed on God, the one who promised to walk with you through it all? Every morning we have a choice, just like Moses did. Will you set your mind on your circumstances, or will you set your mind on God, the one who will never leave you and never forsake you? I hope that you choose every day from now on to set your mind on the Spirit, for when you set your mind on the Spirit, is life and peace. Amen. Thank you for your patience.